Welcome to this episode of Chester Centurion Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Robbie Davison, co-founder of Can Cook, a pioneering social food business dedicated to ensuring everyone, regardless of income, has access to fresh, healthy food. In this episode, we'll explore the shocking reality that 54% of the UK struggles to afford fresh food, how Can Cook is tackling food equality with ultra-processed free meals, the connection between diet and long-term health, the challenges of running a purpose-driven business, and how to stay adaptable and mission-focused has driven growth. Let's dive in. Robbie, welcome to the Chester Centurions Podcast. Before we get started today, what I'd love to know is tell us a little bit about the business, how long you've been trading and what it is you do.
We've been trading for 20 years, give or take a few months.
Wow.
Trading in Liverpool initially, and we've been in North Wales since 2018. And what we do, I describe as a social food business. And what we do is we have set out to make sure that everybody, no matter who they are, can eat good, fresh food, regardless of their income levels.
Wow.
We haven't veered. We haven't veered from that message. Our services reflect that still. And we keep pushing on that message all of the time. So in the business, we've got about 6 service channels, but we've got 140 plus meal types. And all of those meal types are ultra process free, which means we are the only food business in Europe that can claim to be ultra process free.
So we've talked before, Robbie, and you gave me a stat last time we talked that really kind of blew me away, which is 54% of everyone in the UK cannot afford to eat fresh food. Is that right?
Yeah, and if you add to that is two other stats that go with it. Good food, fresh food, is now going up in price at twice the rate as poor food. And interestingly, over 60%, we think it's 70%, but over 60% to be safe, never, ever, ever cook a meal at home from scratch.
Wow.
So everybody's defaulting to that poor food. They either have to because they can't afford it, or they are doing it because they can't cook, or they're not cooking. Now that's quite scary, because if you want to track the crisis of obesity or diabetes or all these cancers, even what happens is most of that emanates from poor diet. And if we've got a nation hooked on cheap, poorer food products, and you want to connect it to the burden of the NHS, that's largely where it's been driven from.
Gosh, that's interesting. So what motivated you to start your own business, Robbie, and what was the driving force behind your decision to take on this entrepreneurial role?
It was interesting. I realised about 25 years ago that I couldn't work for anybody else. I felt that every time I was working with somebody else, things were not moving quick enough. They lacked direction, too bureaucratic. So about 25 years ago, I decided I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do something else. And then, interestingly, I was asked this not so long back. What was the kind of one thing that the catalyst for the business? And do you remember the idea of Sure Starts?
Yes.
Remember Sure Starts? So at the time, I was on the board of a Sure Start, and also I was asked to advise the Sure Start because they had a community café. And they said, but could you advise them on business and whether they could be business-like? And actually, I was standing watching the customers in the cafe one day, and I seen a young woman who had 2 very young children. They were 3 and 2. The young woman was schizophrenic, and I found all this out later, and she was really struggling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I could see is that the children were just not functioning like children.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over and sat with her, and she told me that she hadn't eaten for 2 days, and neither had the children. So 3 and 2, they hadn't eaten for two days. So the chef, our head chef, interestingly, was the head chef in the cafe back in the day. Then he's still with me now. It's fantastic.
Wow.
And so I got Tony to make them 3 adult portions of sausage and mash.
Mm-hmm.
All 3, mother and 2 children, these are 2 young children, devoured the food. Now, what was really interesting, though, was 10 minutes later, those children moved from being really down, sunken, no energy, looking at the floor, to running around the room and being as kids were, playing.
Incredible.
And that taught me, just in that one moment, it taught me that's the difference good food can make. Mm-hmm. So I literally, at that time, thought, okay, how do you get good food to people? We started to train people to learn to cook, Tony and I, and then we developed the business from there, literally from that moment.
What an incredible story. What an incredible story. So what are the common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you go about addressing them?
I think the main misconception is, let's just do it from a startup point of view. The main misconception is that the idea is a market. And what, for me, you see so many people who are really passionate about the idea, but have no understanding about the marketplace and really haven't done them yards. And so I think at startup, the first couple of years of your business, it's got to be 70% driven by your head, by what you know about the intelligence you have, the mm-hmm. intelligence skill set you have yourself, mm-hmm. but about the market intelligence that you've got. Mm-hmm. Because great ideas are just great ideas initially to the person who had the great idea, mm-hmm. but they're not necessarily great ideas to the big bad world, and I would push, and I've done this because I've in the past taught loads of stuff with the School of Social Entrepreneurs and so on about what do you want to do to become a business person. I'm always saying the idea is just a very, very small part of where you go next. It has to be about the marketplace. And are you sure about the market? But interestingly, are you sure about your skill set in that marketplace? Because you will be the person driving the business at the most important time, which is at the start.
I think there's a really cool message there, isn't there? So we've got to research the marketplace, make sure that we've got a product that is that has a requirement, that is required.
It's viable, yeah. Viable.
That is viable.
Who will buy it?
And then reflect on your own expertise in that marketplace. Have you got the skills to get something up and running and profitable, right?
Yeah. Great idea. Again, back to the idea. Have you got the ability and the skill set to bring your idea to life and take it into the marketplace? Because if you haven't, why are you doing it?
I think it was Richard Branson said, that it's really, well, when you've got his kind of money, I suppose it's easy to start a business. But he says you come up with a world-changing idea, you find the best people in the world to implement that idea, and then I won't say the exact words he says, but you get out of the way pretty quick and let them get on with it. But we haven't all got that kind of money to buy in that expertise, so you have to analyze yourself, right?
And Alan, I think I said this not so long back to a group of people who were working in the public sector, and Richard Branson will be similar because he works off budgets and comes backwards. As a startup and as a business person, most of the time you work off targets and chase forward.
100%. Yeah,
and trust me, managing a budget is 10 times easier than managing a target.
100%. Managing a budget is 10 times easier than managing a target. I love that.
Absolutely. And completely different skill set, by the way. Mm-hmm. Completely different skill set.
So how do you maintain a work-life balance as a business owner? What do you have any personal rituals or habits? And how do you stay motivated and focused?
Do you know, staying motivated and focused is quite easy. I'm a social. I would describe myself as a campaigner, really. So, a political campaigner. I'm not. I'm not in a political party, but this business that we have campaigns as well as delivers. So I stay current. I stay current in the social policy world. I read a lot, which is really important. I read, I'm a big fan of Yanis Varoufakis and what he's written on the economy. I want to see new business models come through, and the only way you can do that is to be current to the kind of paradigm of the private business, if you like, but also following that, what's the kind of business you want to create for yourself? And I get excited by all that. I get excited by reading all this, arguing with all of this as I'm reading the book and listening to radios and podcasts and watching podcasts and so on. And then just to break away, because you've got to break away. I find the most creative space is walking my dog.
Yeah.
I'm forever recording myself as I'm walking along with thoughts about what I've got to do for the next week. What that feels like. Who I'm speaking. I look at my diary and I'm going to be speaking to them. So, okay, what do I need to be prepared for them? And I'll do all of that while I'm walking my dog, because I think if you're going to be in charge of something, if you're going to lead something, everybody needs to know that every single person you meet needs to know that you're capable in that position. And that requires real focus. And because I enjoy it, I relax.
Yeah.
Demanding that focus of myself.
There's a couple of messages there. I think Viktor E. Frankl talks about this in Man's Search for Meaning, which is quite a powerful book, but one of the biggest motivators in life is purpose. And Robbie, I think you've got a very, very strong purpose. You say you're a campaigner. And you've got that purpose about bringing healthy food to the population, right? So I think that in itself is as much motivation as you need to keep going. But the other thing you talked about there is the power of being able to give yourself the headspace, and a lot of business owners work in the business all the time and don't give themselves that clarity of thought to come up with ideas and strategies to take the business forward. So walking the dog and giving yourself that headspace is very powerful for you.
Yeah. And I don't know whether you're a dog owner or not, but I think One of the things for me, you see, is it takes you to places. If you're committed to owning to being with your dog, if you like. What I love is every single weekend finding somewhere fresh to go, and then the dog gets off, and I just follow. And then but what it does is I'll sit down and I'll be there recording myself whilst I'm doing it.
Yeah, my dog seems to find the pub a lot, Robbie. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah.
Well, interesting. It always ends up there.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought I'll let you put that in, and then I'll join in, But it always ends up in the pub.
Yeah, but why spoil a good walk, right? So, in the constantly evolving business landscape, how do you stay adaptable and open to change? Are there any specific strategies that you use to remain, I guess, innovative?
I think for any business, and I do mean this, for any business, the main strategy that you've got to work with is staying relevant to your customer.
Oh, yes.
And so we stay relevant to our customer by, and genuinely, I do believe that we're quite unique in this. We only ever produce food for the health of the people eating the food.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the supply chain, right? So we develop a meal and it's saying, okay, can we improve the health, and will they love that food when they taste it? And then we think about the supply chain later. And then what's interesting, then we think about the economics of it later. What we do is say, oh, can we get that right? And then we'll pull it back this way. And what's interesting about that is the food supply chain designs the other way. It says, we're going to make these like this food because we're going to market it to death. We'll do some focus groups and stuff, but we're going to make it, as cheap as possible while we're doing it as well.
Maximize profit.
Yeah, absolutely. At the start, it doesn't go anywhere till we can maximize profit. We actually do it the other way. And that's what keeps us relevant. So, I mentioned before, we've become ultra processed free. We made that move because that was the best move for the health of the people eating the food. Now, interestingly, our market opportunity will come with this, and we have a strategy for getting there. But it's making us no money at the minute. But we've managed to do the R&D, and we've shown that it's at net cost to our meal production. So the question I would pose if anybody's watching this and they're in the food supply chain, why aren't you doing it too? Because you can do it at net cost, So there's a bit of the challenge. But I think one of the things for us is staying relevant is hard, even though you've got that focus, because wrapped around us is the biggest food machine you can imagine. When I smiled last week, I watched an advert about a couple of footballers who were advertising McDonald's, and it makes me smile. You see, because I know McDonald's are paying them top dollars to do that, but the football clubs wouldn't allow those players to eat that product. But they think it's all right to market it out there, and that's what you're up against. You're up against a massive, massive machine. And McDonald's food tastes fantastic. It does. It tastes fantastic. But interestingly, it's not good for you. Right? So there's your choices. There's your choices that you make. But for us, slap bang in the middle, if you like, what we know is, wow, what a machine McDonald's is. I know I'm not picking on McDonald's. There's loads. But what's really important is it's such a major, major, major machine that's out there. Clever, really clever to the marketplace, and there's a little old can cook trying to work its way through the middle with its meal options and so on. And it's a fight worth taking on.
Very good. So, can you offer a glimpse into the future? What are your goals, and what do you envisage the next chapter of your entrepreneurial journey?
Make us much bigger, but make us much bigger by not standing still. We've got, if I tilt my camera around there, you can see there. We have this thing called Meal Vend, which is the first in the UK, so to vend fresh food plastic free. And we had a launch, but we are going to launch it properly to the marketplace. Sell that to the public sector, sell that to hospitals, sell it anywhere with these big workplaces. And then people can order their fresh meals online, ready for lunch, ready for taking home. We've created a concept called Meal Lockers, mixing Amazon Lockers and HelloFresh together. So our meal lockers are refrigerated, and we do the HelloFresh bit. We do meal boxes, to deliver to customers. And then there's two other things which are really important. There's the UPF movement. And we want to sell you ultra processed free food of any meal description into schools and into hospitals, and enable schools and hospitals to provide really healthy, tastier food. And then the last thing, and it's driven by social cause, there's tons. Let me just give you an estimate. There's about 500 tons per week that we know of fresh vegetables available, surplus.
Wow.
Just in England.
Wow.
Probably 10 times that if you really get close to the data. We're looking to work with others to intercept that, bring it into the food chain again, and say we get 10 tons, for instance. We'll be able to return 15,000 fresh meals back out there to households who were really struggling. Now, and when I say this, I want to qualify this for anybody who's watching this and thinking, it's people on benefits, it's this, it's that. I want to be really, it is people on benefits and they need support. But what's really important about this, when you mentioned before, 54% of everybody cannot afford to eat good food. That 54% is made up of largely hard-working people who've fallen under the line because the cost of living is still going up. The cost of food since COVID has gone up in some cases by about 50 to 60%.
Yeah, we've all seen that happen. We've all seen that happen. We can't hide from that, Robbie. It's happening in front of our eyes, right?
And so good hard-working people, good people, anyone who's, I just don't meet people who are bad people, who are struggling. I just don't. They're just struggling. And so one of the things for me is that we have the ability to do something about it. That's the way we're set up. And that's one of our innovations, if you like. And that's how I see growth, making sure that we deliver on sales, but we deliver on impact.
Robbie, I'd like to thank you. I think you're on quite a journey and you've shared that with us today. I think you've got an incredibly strong purpose, incredibly strong reason for growing this business. And, you do see that occasionally, but you've really hit home with me. There's a really strong message here and a need for what you do. So thank you for that. But I've got one final question, and that is, if you could offer 3 pieces of advice to, I guess, an aspiring entrepreneur, someone who was just starting their journey or facing challenges in their business, what would be the top 3 pieces of advice you would offer?
Make sure your skills match your ambition.
Yeah. Money
matters more than you know, so protect it at all times. And the last thing I'll link together, I want to put 3 things together: hard work, luck, and resilience.
Hard work.
You're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked in your life if you're going to make it in business. If you work hard, and I'm a big believer in this, luck always plays a major part in any successful business. Anyone who says it doesn't is just telling fibs. So, but luck only comes if you work hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. And if you can't take knocks, if you're not resilient, don't even start up, because most of business is about being knocked. There are a few significant wins which take you where you take you, but most of the time you're having to deal with the drama of business, and business is full of drama. So if you're not resilient, don't even think about it.
Robbie, what a way to end. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Alan, thank you very, very much. See you soon.
You're very welcome.